Hello, world. Welcome to Rex Arthur TV. This is the Rex Arthur Show, where we discuss LGBTQ issues with an LGBTQ approach and an LGBTQ perspective in an LGBTQ plus planet where each and every one of us belongs to one or two letters in the 10-letter sexual alphabet. And today we're going to do a very special video that we're going to be having together in line with the Rivers of Thought Lava of Fikir playlist. And we are going to be calling it a dialectic. But it's going to be a new type of dialectic because diversity is king. And we have diverse dialectics. Now, dialectics is defined as, also known as the dialectical method, as a discourse between two or more people holding different points of view about a subject but wishing to establish the truth through reasoned arguments. And dialectic resembles debate, but the concept excludes subjective elements such as emotional appeal and the modern pejorative sense of rhetoric. Dialectic may be contrasted with the didactic method, wherein one side of the conversation teaches the other. Dialectic is alternatively known as minor logic as opposed to major logic or critique. So we are going to have, and it's of course removing emotional appeal and modern and rhetoric. We are going to have a dialectic, and that is, of course, it's not going to be a dialectic. I'm still going to find the way how to call it. It could even be a critique. Yes, I think what we're going to do is actually a critique more than a dialectic. But what I'm telling you is the beauty of what is happening now in the age, in the sense of time, in the times we're living in. Everything is changing, is drastically changing thanks to technology. And even philosophy is changing. Logic is changing. And how we discourse and discuss. Like today, what we're going to do, I wanted to call it a dialectic, but I can't call it a dialectic because it has to be a discourse between two or more people at the same time. So it's a weird dialectic. It's a virtual dialectic, or it's a virtual critique, because I think critique is better. We're going to check what critique means. Critique means the method of disciplined systematic study of a written or oral discourse. So I think that's what we're going to do. Although critique is commonly understood as fault finding and negative judgment, it can also involve merit recognition, and in the philosophical tradition, it also means a methodical practice of doubt. The contemporary sense of critique has been largely influenced by the Enlightenment critique of prejudice and authority, which championed the emancipation and autonomy from religious and political authorities. The critique derives from the French, via French from ancient Greek critique, the faculty of judgment, that is discerning the value of persons or things. Critique is also known as major logic as opposed to minor logic dialectics. So we are actually going to do a critique of an oral work by Heather Mcdonald, who was interviewed by Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report. And I was very much interested by what Heather said because it was very weird. I didn't expect to hear that. And even the title of the video was is a diversity delusion. Of course, as I've told you, because of technology, we have a lot of dialectics online. We have debates, We have the dialectical, guys are talking about the Bible and they argue amongst themselves online, and they have different cameras, they're in different parts of the world and they're discussing. And then even here on this one, she has spoken. Now you come and come and read the comments here. So Athling Carl says it's okay to be white. And then another person says, and then Heather, someone is supporting Heather. Those on the left only accept structural explanations for, yes, this is what we're going to talk about. So someone stands with her. I want to find somebody who is against Heather. Well, majority of them are really with her. Let's see the likes and dislikes. And 304 disliked the video, and 7,600 people liked the video. I dissuaded myself from liking it because I disagree with her on some issues, and that's what I'm doing this video for. And I'm trying to look for someone who dislikes Heather. Diversity equals anti-white stroke anti-Asian. We all know this. Why not just say it? So if you are in the diversity camp, according to Trevor Grimes, it is you are a person who is anti-white or anti-Asian, and that shouldn't be said. That's what we want, why we're doing this video. Okay, so I think Heather's friends came here. Then this one is talking about Heather's stance. Secular conservatism will be the next tour de force in American politics. People are reading the culture of critique, Dave. Yes, and this is what I'm doing. I'm critiquing. Just keep an eye on what's happening in South Africa. That's the future of the United States. So these are guys who are really attacking the left. You see, they're attacking cultural Marxism. Multiculturalism is a failed experiment. All of this. You see, that's these are people who have. So I'm trying to understand. What I'm trying to make you understand is the beauty of social media technology is that it has even transformed how we debate, how we discuss issues. So people are writing down their philosophical views, they are writing down their support. You see, someone is liking the interview, and I was trying to get somebody who was not with Heather, but I haven't found anybody. And that's another thing you need to understand about the social media platforms, is that when you have a page that is only exclusive to your fans, you will only have your disciples writing and supporting you, and you will not find people coming to attack you there. But there are some channels that are very open, and you can have your enemies writing something much as your friends writing something. So basically, Rubin report is what this means. Rubin should understand his followers are actually his subscribers, because when you subscribe to CNN, like if you go to a video on CNN, the subscribers to CNN are not necessarily followers of CNN. They are just people who watch the news. So the mainstream media is very objective. The social media is very subjective. So you'll find people who follow you on social media and subscribe to your channel, they are mostly your followers. They agree with you. And when we do this video, as we're going to do the critique, Dave Rubin used to be a bit left. He used to be on the left, but he's still on the left, but he's pandering to the right for certain reasons, because he's seeing there's something wrong in the left, and he's right to do whatever he wants to do. He's free. Freedom is not right or wrong. It is freedom is freedom. Yes, that's what you need to understand. Freedom has nothing to do with right or wrong. It is just freedom. So he's free to go and have connections with the right. Just as someone on the right is free to connect with the left. So it's not about right or wrong. That is it right for a leftist to join with a rightist? No, it's not about right or wrong. The question is not even the question. The fact is you are free to agree with somebody on anything. At the same time, you're also free to disagree with somebody on anything. Yes, it's freedom. It's not about right or wrong. And look at this person attacking our movement. Identity politics is one of the most awful phenomena of the 21st century. So we're going to discuss all of this right now. Once the everyday American understands the postmodernist, that was a very yes. This is a good. Finally, we've got somebody who is against Heather. Wrong. Blacks can never reach the economic status of Asians because of genetic differences. So, provided that there won't be some DNA modifying technology in the near future, there is nothing that anyone can do to reach equality of outcome between the races. And no, it's not racism. And no, it is not racism. Is no one can do anything about is it is just nature. So this person is saying it is not racism. And there's something you're going to find when we reach that part of the video. Very important part. I also disagreed with Heather there, because Heather was talking about the fact that blacks should be like Asians, and because Asians have reached the economic status, very many Asians are not poor. Yes, but very many blacks are poor, both in Africa and in the West. So what is the problem? So she said maybe it's how blacks behave. And you're going to research that. It's so hilarious. And we're going to discuss it in depth. And then you also have professors who get close to criticizing the status quo, get visits from the diversity police, and find their careers ruined quite quickly. So this one is commenting about the fact that if you criticize the status quo, you get your career ruined. And this is what we are saying. Your career shouldn't be ruined because you are criticizing the status quo. But that's the nature of the world, sadly. If you're against the status quo, believe you me, you will suffer. Yes. And I mean, Martin Luther King was killed because he was against the status quo. Jesus Christ was killed because he was against the status quo. And Abraham Lincoln was also killed because he was against the status quo. So everybody, if you're against the status quo, be prepared to die, And like what this guy is saying about professors who lose their careers, yes, you are in potential to lose your career. It depends which country you live in. So when you live in a country whereby status quo is the thing, 80% you will lose your job, you will be killed, you will be politically assassinated, you will be morally assassinated. But if you live in a country that allows freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, then even if you say something that is wrong, or say something that is like critical to the status quo, then you will survive. Because you don't have to lose your job because you are against the status quo. I mean, even in Nazi Germany, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the pastor who was against the Nazi regime, died a very bad death, because I think he didn't kill himself. They punished him. Actually, let's go and let's go to Twitter. I mean, not Twitter, Wikipedia, and see what happened to Dietrich Bonhoeffer, something like that. The German is a bit funny. Yeah, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German pastor, anti-Nazi dissident, and key founding member of the Confessing Church. So Dietrich was against the Nazi regime. And when he was against the Nazi regime, he was arrested in April 1943 by the Gestapo and imprisoned at Tegel prison for 1.5 years. Later, he was transferred to a Nazi concentration camp. This is a German, but he was taken to the camp. After being accused of being associated with the July 20 plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler, he was quickly tried along with other accused plotters, including former members of the Abwehr, the German military intelligence office, and then executed by hanging on April 9th, 1945, as the Nazi regime was collapsing. So you see what happened in Nazi Germany. Dietrich was against the status quo. So when he was against the status quo, he was arrested and he was even put in a Nazi concentration camp. But remember, because he was a German, he could not, it was weird to put him in the Nazi camp. So they took him to prison, and then when the Nazi regime was collapsing, he was executed. So what are we learning here? We are learning the fact that when you're against the status quo, especially in a society or in a system that protects the status quo, 80% you will die. That's what I said happened to Martin Luther King. And not just Martin Luther King, even the whole issue of racism. If you're a black person and you are against the status quo, 80% you will be arrested, 80% you won't get a job. So these are the things we're always telling people, that sometimes the fight you take up, it makes you lose your job. It makes you lose your life. You know, I was telling you, was I telling you in this channel? I think in the theological channel, where the Kenyan atheist who works in government had a problem. He was sued, or rather he was sacked, and now he's suing his employer for sacking him because of his political views or even his religious views, because he's an atheist. And so he's saying that they are using the fact that he's an atheist, is being attacked, is being discriminated against. And I told him on Twitter that yes, you're supposed to be free to express your views. Nobody should punish you for what you write on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, because that is where you exercise your constitutional freedoms of expression and conscience. So, because he did not make a mistake in when he posted anything on Twitter or Facebook, that has nothing to do with what you're doing in the office, unless you're working for Twitter or Facebook. What you should be punished for or sacked for is what you do, whether you didn't do your work very well in the office. But if you express political views that sound different from, even if you work for the government, and you express your views on internet, on Twitter, you should not be punished for that, because you are a human being and you're free to express yourself. Of course, now that's why the case is going to be very interesting. Will they call him a civil servant? And if they do call him a civil servant, then sometimes civil servants, they will have to have a civil servant's code of conduct, which tells civil servants not to mention anything political or governmental on their Twitter posts, because they work for the government. So when you work for the government, you are bound to the government, and so you cannot even speak against it, because when you give your political views, they may sound anti-governmental. So maybe that's how the case will go for our friend. and that's what we're going to see. So basically, we are showing you this. I was just showing you how when you are against the status quo, you will not be. You will be not. What do you call it? You can even lose your job. But right now, these days, it's better than the past, because as I told you in the past, many people have died for what they believe in, like Martin Luther King. You know, he was shot. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, you've seen already, he was killed. And Abraham Lincoln was already assassinated. Gandhi was assassinated. So it's a fact. But what you need to understand is these days it's better. Like when we're going to watch this video, Heather Mcdonald, when she was going to have a lecture, she had to be protected by the police. It doesn't mean the police support her. Please understand. It just means the police has to give protection to an intellectual or to anybody who has a different view from another person. So that's how we are. I hope it happens also for Black Lives Matters leaders. So that, yes, even if Heather can be protected, I mean, the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement should be protected. It's as simple as that. Because they are also coming from an intellectual point of view. You see, this is why you should. It's very, very dicey. This is a very hard video to do, but I had to do it because I was really intrigued by some of the viewpoints Heather was putting forward. Okay, let's go on. So let's start this video and we go bit by bit.
Joining me today is a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, a self-described secular conservative, and the author of the Diversity Delusion, Heather Mcdonald. Finally,
Yay!
Welcome to the Rubin Report.
All right, so Heather Mcdonald is a secular conservative. Very weird term. And she has written the book Diversity Delusion. So let's go to the book itself, Diversity Delusion, and we see what she is discussing. And you know, she's in the school of thought that is anti-immigration, anti-multiculturalism. So there is a book by Heather Mcdonald, and Heather Mcdonald, is she on Wikipedia? Let's see if she is on Wikipedia. I am not seeing her Wikipedia page, but I'm seeing her book. So we want to just go through the review in Google Books. The Diversity Delusion. Oh my, look at her using our rainbow. People, I mean, the color of the book is using rainbow colors, and she is let's see a review of that book. Okay, review. Sorry about that. Okay, let's read the National Review. Misdirected hysteria. Heather Mcdonald is there. Okay. This is a personal review. There it is. How race and gender pandering corrupt the university and undermine our culture. So this is, even the police are afraid to act. The majority of campus is being divided, tagged, and bagged as perpetrators of crime, racists, rapists. While the characterization of this crime runs roughshod over the facts and statistics, the fringe bullies push forward and isolating and destroying anything or anyone in their path. They stamp their feet and scream like toddlers. I think she's attacking the activists. And she's calling it the age of ignorance, a malignant tumor ironically embedded within the information age. It was going to happen that the information age was going to, it created an information gap, just like the wealth inequality gap. There are very rich people, many rich people in the world, as much as there are very many poor people. So there's a gap. Gaps always exist, even in nature. Yes, that's why I told you, when you understand the world, it is a rainbow world. It is exactly like that. Not everybody is red. Not everybody is purple. Not everybody is rich. Not everybody is going to be poor. Not everybody is black. Not everybody is white. Not everybody is straight. Not everybody is gay. So that is a fact. It is, the world will forever be a rainbow world. So there's nothing like diversity delusion. It is diversity reality. Wake up, Heather. Wake up. This is a sleepwalking. She's in a reality, in a diverse reality, but doesn't think it is real. It is real. And that's why we're talking about this. And so it's a difficult read, not because the prose is challenging, but rather it identifies damaged social structures as the root cause of inferior education, while addressing political correctness as the seed of campus dystopia, now spilling over to the contemporary society. So, according to this reviewer, the book is discussing the damaged social structures and saying that the cause is the inferior education. And we're also going to see another video of 3 professors who are challenging the feminist ideology, and they did it in a very, very sly way. And basically, they were trying to attack the diversity studies or the sexual and gender studies. The fact that they are not like, they find bias in them, a lot of victimhood and a lot of narcissism. And I kind of disagree with those professors because of one thing. Gender studies, sexuality studies, race studies, the reason why they sound so victimhood, or they're from the victimhood, is because these are groups that have suffered oppression. That's what these mainstream people need to understand. That because of that, gender studies will sound very victimized. You know, in gender studies, women will sound like they are complaining or they are suffering. It's because that's exactly what they feel. And so what academics need to understand is that these studies are not basically countering or fighting the status quo. They are expressing their feeling of being in a system like that. And do you know, it could happen anyway. Imagine if we were living in a woman's world, and then in this woman's world of 10,000 years of women in power, men are feeling oppressed. Believe you me, there will be gender studies based on male sexuality. Reason being, the men are expressing their feelings and their response to living in a society that is governed by women, sorry. And that's the same thing. That's why sexuality studies are very important, because the LGBT community, much as I say we live in an LGBTQ plus planet, it is really not so LGBTQ plus, because majority of the people in the world are straight. So the main work for the LGBT community, like what I do, I try to make the straight people allies. That's how they will be able to be part of the LGBTQ plus planet. Because believe you me, the planet is LGBTQ plus. But the problem we have is the straight people do not know that they are part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum, because they are part of it. Everybody's part of that rainbow. It's just that many people don't know they are part of that rainbow. So that's what you need to understand, that if you're in a system whereby there are ignorant people ruling you, that's the reality of the matter is the oppression, the sexual identity oppression. The irony is that the LGBTQ persons are being ruled by ignorant people who are ignorant of sexual sciences. Because if they understood sexual sciences, they would not even oppress anybody. It's the same as gender. Women may feel oppressed by men because the men who are in power are ignorant of women. And so if you are ignorant of a person, you need, for you to know how to deal with that person and to work with that person, you're supposed to get knowledge of that person. You're supposed to understand that person, and that is done through education. It's done through reading. It's done through communication. It's done through discussions like the way we're all discussing right now. We are discussing about the different segments of the society. So, and Mcdonald sounds a clarion call for the knowing. And so that's her book, Diversity Delusion. And that's what Dave Rubin called the video Diversity Delusion. So let's go on now. We have already watched this video. It's very long, so we can't do it part by part. So we're going to pick a few parts and discuss from them. So we have already found one thing. She's a secular conservative, and she wrote the book, what's it called? Diversity Delusion. Now let's go to a part in the video. Okay, let's start from there.
They're really religious. They don't really like the gays and whatever else. So can you sort of describe how you came to a place that you describe yourself as a secular conservative? Because I don't think people really think that exists.
Well, I guess I was always secular. I wasn't always conservative.
So what does secular mean to you, first off?
I'm very unreligious. I am, to be honest, probably perhaps too fanatically unreligious. I simply do not agree with the idea that we're overseen by a personal loving God. I find petitionary prayer a completely narcissistic activity, that anybody would dare think that a personal God would care about his cancer when there are people being mowed down in earthquakes and landslides, what I call the daily slaughter of the innocents, again, on a daily basis. So I grew up not in a religious environment, and never even really thought about religion. To me, it's I can retroactively look at my experience growing up and be sort of amazed at it. It is a verification of what religious people talk about with the bi-coastal elites. Because I grew up in LA, I went to a lot of schooling in the East Coast, so I was in kind of a liberal elite culture. I don't recall knowing anybody who was religious until I came to New York in the 90s and started thinking of myself, realizing that I was conservative because I'd always been a liberal by default. And in that environment, especially with National Review, I started meeting.
All right, so she is saying, and this is a very important aspect of the video, if not the most important, she is saying she is a secular conservative. And to her, being secular means having no religion. So she says a very important point, very important, that you should not leave out. She grew up irreligious, without religion. She grew up without religion. That's a very important statement. Reason being, contrary to common belief and common know-how, humans were focused on whenever you meet a person, you never used to ask about their their family background, the environment they were born in. So what used to happen, like Aristotle, nobody knows exactly Aristotle's childhood environment. Very few people know Plato's. But as time went on, historians and biographers were now studying the early childhood of great people. This is why Sigmund Freud could write about Leonardo da Vinci, because he went back to the books to find out how Leonardo da Vinci grew up. This is how the histories of late heroes are more advanced and more and able to make us understand them than the history of early heroes. Jesus is an early hero, but nobody knows his childhood environment, how he grew up. They only write about Jesus when they met him. That's when he was 30 years old. They met him, and that's when he was working with historians. I don't know whether it was a mistake or it was wisdom. To me, it was wisdom to work with learned people, because contrary to the belief, people think all the disciples were miseducated and illiterate. No. Matthew was very educated. He was a tax collector. And you also have Mark. Mark wrote. He was also a disciple. So there was a mix. He had illiterate and literate. John was too literate. He could write. So you have to understand, in any case, then you could say Jesus had more literate disciples than illiterate. Yes. And he knew how to pick people. So what do I mean? He was surrounded by literate people, and literate people are very good at keeping records. When you're an educated person, you are very good at recording material. An illiterate person is not so good at recording literate data. That's the catch. An uneducated person is very good at recording data that is not necessarily connected to literacy. Like, you can't tell an uneducated person to tell you, summarize for me chapter 1 of George Orwell's Animal Farm. If you have not read it, believe you me, you will not be able to summarize anything. So illiterate people cannot deduce literate matter simply because they haven't read it. Whatever you've read, and read very well, you are able to summarize. So these literate people around Jesus were able to record his life only where they connected with him. So that tells you another thing. Jesus never revealed his story. And then secondly, the literate people who surrounded him did not even bother asking him, how did you grow up? What was your home like? How was it living with other brothers and sisters? Where did you go? Did you travel? Were you an introvert? Were you an extrovert? Nothing like that. Psychology was so basic. People just meet people, they do whatever they want. But right now, we know everybody because people's stories are being revealed. You meet people. Look at Trump. Oh my goodness, the number of books about Trump, even his psychology is beyond. Look at Obama. So many people write about Obama because they know everything. They know where he grew up, the house he grew up in, the school he went to in Indonesia, all of these things everybody knows, and their friends are around. So if Jesus was born now or today, oh my goodness, he could not run away. Everybody would know about it. So that's what you need to understand about life is So the early childhood, my whole point is the early childhood of your life is the most important. It's the most important. Okay, so that is let's be pausing the video because of we don't want to be doing a lot of long videos. We want to do them in parts. So this is part one, and we have found out the lady we are critiquing. To critique means you can even give praise much as you can give criticism. And so I have little praise for her. I have more criticism for her. But I am not attacking her freedom of speech. Yes, that's what I want you to understand. I did this video because I don't believe there's a diversity delusion. I believe there's a diversity reality. And that is what humans needed to come to terms with. And that's what we are talking about. There is no diversity delusion. That's why I'm doing the video. I'm critiquing. Because if I agreed, I would have done what these guys have done. They have written their comments. They have said what they wanted. And they have even liked the video. But for me, I'm saying, I believe in diversity. The diversity reality. It's not a delusion. You know what a delusion is? It's a deception. It's a facade. Let's end the video with knowing what a delusion is. Then we come to part 2. We'll continue with the video. A delusion is a belief or altered reality. I like this below here. Seeking medical care for delusion. A belief or altered reality that is persistently held despite evidence or agreement to the contrary. So it is a belief or a reality that is persistently held even though there's evidence against it. So that's what you need. These days, my friends, be very careful of the language you use because it will be held against you. So she has said diversity is a belief that is against the evidence that is there that there's no diversity. Wrong. Diversity is reality. Unless she's playing Sun Tzu. You know Sun Tzu's game? Deception. You just tell people diversity is not there, but it's actually there. But to cover things, you say it is not there. But for me, I don't play Sun Tzu all the time. There are certain areas where I don't play Sun Tzu's game. There are other areas I play Sun Tzu's game of deception. Yes, lying sometimes helps in certain areas, and it's up to you to decide where you lie. But in this situation, anything to do with diversity, identity of people, no lying. You have to be open. If people are suffering because of their identity, it has to be discussed and a way found forward how to deal with it. Because if you don't deal with that, the identity, you will have wars. You see the Civil War of America? It was an identity war because there was one group of people that believed blacks were not humans and should be enslaved. And there was another group that believed and stood by the fact that blacks are human beings, and if they are to work for you, they should be given a level playing field whereby they can go and say, I can work for you, I can do you. They didn't want, it's not that they wanted blacks not to work. It's that they were just saying, give them, these are employees, and you've denied them their wages because you think they are not human. They can't think. You know, one of the reasons why people have slaves is that there's a belief, there's a silent belief of inferiority of the person. He doesn't even know that he needs a salary. You see, that's what you need to understand. It was a very bad, it's about superiority, inferiority complex. Someone is dealing with someone whom he thinks is dumb. So he will work and all you do just give him food. He's like an animal. Yes. That's why we used to fight, women fight the whole notion that women are things. Because that's how women were viewed. Women were viewed as property. They were seen as cattle. And same to slaves. They were seen as property. You bought a woman through dowry, and you bought a human through slavery. It's as simple as that. And whatever you bought is yours. You own it. So this is what you need to understand about the dowry system. It has very many problems also, because the woman never vowed to own the man. It was the man who said, I'm owning her and I'll even buy. I'm telling you, it even messes up religion. Yes, because Jesus bought us with a price. It's hilarious. Yes. I mean, I would also go and tell Jesus, excuse me, you bought me for what? I didn't need to be bought. I want to buy you. And this is the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel is, give me money. Jesus, give it to me. I need to be rich. Come on, Jesus, pour down the money. And so it's like a woman now. If you compare the relationship between Jesus and a man, and as a man and a woman, it's now the woman demanding, you bought me the price, give it to me, give me everything. You said you wanted me, so bring it on. So now when you come with this discussion that we are not property, it changes even religion, because Jesus said, I'm the shepherd and you are the sheep. You see, now when you come with this discussion that we are not property, then we can come and tell Jesus, excuse me, Jesus, I ain't your sheep. In fact, I'm your shepherd, and you gotta do what I want you to do. And that's why people, when they pray to Jesus, very aggressive people, they pray, I want a car now, in Jesus' name. I want it now. You see, that is reverse theology, reverse structures. Okay, enough of that. Let's come back. We'll come back to this in part 2.